Hello and welcome to Japan Lyric Room. In this program, we explore the lyrics of Japanese songs, delivering clear explanations of their meanings and unique cultural backgrounds.
Right.
Please note that while the voices and illustrations in this video are AI generated, the project itself is run by two Japanese creators living in Japan. The script is carefully researched and written by us to provide original explanations.
It's truly wonderful to be here today. We have a really fascinating piece of music to get into.
We absolutely do. I mean, just imagine writing a song, pouring your entire soul into the lyrics and the melody, and, well, the world basically just ignores it.
Right, it just comes out and vanishes.
Exactly. It makes a tiny ripple and then disappears. But then, like 4 decades later, internet algorithms, teenagers halfway across the world, and this massive global subculture suddenly decide that it is the defining masterpiece of its era.
It's wild.
It really is. And that is exactly what happened to Junko Yagami's 1983 track, Tasogare no BAY City.
Yeah, it's honestly one of the most incredible paradoxes in modern music history. I mean, when it was released back in November of 1983, it peaked at a very modest number 75 on the Oricon charts here in Japan.
Number 75. Wow.
Right, it was this beautifully produced track, just dripping with this sophisticated urban sound. But for whatever reason, it just didn't catch fire at the time. It definitely wasn't a monumental smash hit.
Yeah, number 75 is, that's barely a footnote for an artist. But, I mean, let's look at where we are now, 40 years later.
Oh, the statistics today are just staggering. If you looked at 2023 Spotify rankings of the most streamed 1980s Japanese music, this track hit number 2 worldwide.
Number 2 worldwide.
Yeah, it was sitting just behind Yasuda's Fly Day Chinatown. But you know, what I find truly remarkable is the gap beneath it.
Huh.
Tasogare no BAY City had 10 times the streams of the track sitting at number 3.
Wait, hold on. 10 times the streams of the bronze medalist?
Exactly. It didn't just chart, it completely dominated the listening data.
That isn't just a trend, that is a massive cultural shift. But how does that even happen? Like, how does an 80s track suddenly find an audience that huge?
Well, the demographic details give us a huge clue here, and they are really fascinating. About 70% of the listeners for this track are actually outside of Japan.
Wait, really? 70%?
Yeah. The United States is the #1 market, and then that's followed by Japan, then Mexico. And there are these massive pockets of listeners spreading across nations in Europe, South America, and all over Asia.
It's incredible.
It is, because for a Japanese artist from the 80s, their domestic listeners usually make up like 80 to 90% of their audience. So this track is a completely unique outlier. It has basically become a permanent global standard.
Okay, but I have to ask about the mechanics of this. Like, why this song? And why now? You're telling me a teenager in Mexico City in 2023 is casually streaming a Japanese track from 1983. What's the bridge there?
We really have to credit the future funk scene of the 2010s for that initial spark.
Oh, right, future funk.
Yeah, it's this electronic subgenre where overseas producers started heavily sampling 1980s Japanese city pop. They would take these old tracks, speed them up, add a heavier bass line, and just release them online. And Tasogare no BAY City was heavily sampled, and those remixes went incredibly viral.
Okay, so it was basically a Trojan horse. Like, listeners came for the viral dance beat, but then the algorithm pointed them back to the original 1983 track.
Exactly. And when those listeners found the original, they realized they didn't even need the modern remix.
Right.
The urban melodies that sophisticated groove Junko Yagami created, it proved to be entirely fresh to modern ears. It didn't sound dated at all. Honestly, it sounded like a revelation.
Yeah, I totally get that.
That analog warmth mixed with the high-fidelity studio production of the 80s, it just resonated with a generation craving something authentic. And all of this well-deserved recognition actually culminated in a wonderful milestone.
Oh, what happened?
Junko Yagami, who writes her own music and lyrics, was actually inducted into the Women's Songwriters Hall of Fame in Maryland, USA in 2022.
Oh, wow. That is an amazing redemption story for the song. But to truly understand why this track has such a universal appeal, why it resonates with someone, whether they were in Los Angeles, Tokyo, or Paris, we really need to do an in-depth lyric explanation today.
We absolutely need.
Because beneath that incredibly slick, cosmopolitan sound is a story of raw, bleeding, urban loneliness.
Yeah, the contrast between the upbeat instrumentation and the devastating lyrics is exactly what makes it a masterpiece.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're gonna pick up 7 key phrases as they appear in the song to trace this emotional arc. So the story begins by setting the physical scene. The Japanese phrase is Tasogare no BAY City, translates to Bay City at twilight. But let me give you the true weight of this line, cultural nuance, the city by the bay at the magic hour of twilight.
The word Tasogare is just so rich with atmosphere in Japanese. It refers to twilight, but it's that specific fleeting window of time just before nightfall when the sky's colors are shifting so beautifully.
Right, like the magic hour. But it isn't just about pretty colors, is it? Because when I hear this, I picture a glamorous 1980s urban port town like Yokohama.
Exactly. Yokohama is a perfect visual.
The neon lights are just starting to flicker on, reflecting off the water. It's beautiful, but there is this undeniable chill in the air.
And that chill you're feeling is actually baked into the very history of the word itself.
Huh.
The etymology of Tasogare is what makes it so emotionally resonant here. It originates from the old Japanese phrase, Tasogare, which literally translates to, "Who is that?"
Who is that? That's fascinating. Like, you literally can't see the person standing in front of you.
Precisely. Just imagine living hundreds of years ago before we had streetlights. Tasogare comes from that specific time of day when the daylight fades just enough that it becomes too dark to distinguish the faces of the people walking towards you.
Oh, I see.
So you have to ask, who is that? It brings this immediate psychological sense of uncertainty, this slight blurring of reality as the day transitions into the dark.
Oh, wow. So you as a listener are being placed in this moment of extreme vulnerability right from the start.
Yes, exactly.
It perfectly captures the romanticism of the descending night, but because of that literal uncertainty you mentioned, it's heavily mixed with the premonition of a lonely evening. The magic hour isn't just a pretty backdrop, it's the gateway to the isolation of the night. It sets the stage flawlessly for the emotional drop that happens next.
And that drop happens fast.
It really does. Which brings us to the moment the relationship actually ends. Translated simply, just by throwing, you disappeared. But let me read the full emotion of this line. Cultural nuance. With just a cold kiss thrown my way, you disappeared into the night.
To really understand the mechanics of this heartbreak, we have to look at the surrounding imagery in the song. She mentions the smell of cigarettes and a cold kiss. But the absolute key to the devastation is the specific Japanese verb she uses for thrown, which is negata.
Right, because in English we might say someone blew a kiss or threw a kiss in this playful, flirtatious way across a crowded room. But this isn't playful at all, is it? I'm sensing that negata has a much harsher, almost mechanical function here.
You are absolutely right. In this context, the negata completely strips away any romance. It implies a very careless, dismissive action. Think about how you throw away a crumpled piece of trash, or how you toss aside something you completely don't need anymore.
Oh, yeah, that's rough.
It highlights this incredibly dry, cold gesture of a man whose love has entirely cooled. He doesn't gently place the kiss, he just carelessly discards it onto her.
It's such a brutal visual. Let me try an analogy here. It's almost like you've been working on this massive multi-page contract for a house together. You've built this entire life, and when it comes time to finally sign it, the other person just casually slides it into a paper shredder without even making eye contact with you.
Oh, that's a brilliant way to put it.
Right. It's the sheer, careless bureaucracy of a fading romance. The warmth of all those passionate days is instantly erased by this one blunt, emotionless gesture.
That is a highly accurate way to frame it. The casual nature of the destruction is what makes it so devastating. He just vanishes into the neon city and leaves her standing there holding the pieces.
So she's left totally alone on the street, and naturally, her mind tries to process the emptiness by looking at her surroundings, and the environment completely shifts to match her isolation. Translated literally, the off-season sea laughs. But the full sentiment is this. Cultural nuance. The deserted off-season sea seems to be mocking my misery.
In Japan, the term season off carries a very specific, almost haunting visual. It refers to the autumn or winter sea, long after the vibrant, chaotic bustle of the summer beachgoers has entirely vanished.
Yeah, the beaches become these gray, quiet, windswept expanses.
Exactly. And the psychological contrast there is brilliant. If you ask anyone, you naturally associate the beach with happy summer memories. The sun, the warmth, being side by side with your lover. But now she is just standing in her current winter loneliness.
That contrast is so sharp.
It really is. What's fascinating here is her literary choice to personify the sea as laughing at her. Why do you think she feels mocked by the ocean?
Well, I mean, have you ever gone through a terrible breakup and you step outside and the sun is shining brightly, birds are singing, and the world is just effortlessly moving on? It almost feels offensive, like, don't you know my world just ended?
Right, how dare the world keep spinning.
Exactly. The sea doesn't care about her sorrow at all. Its cold, calm expanse possesses this cruel, indifferent beauty.
Exactly. The apathy of nature only amplifies how utterly alone and miserable she feels. It's almost as if the vast ancient ocean is looking at her tiny, temporary human heartbreak and just laughing at the insignificance of it. It shrinks her pain while simultaneously making it feel entirely inescapable.
So she is drowning in this isolation, freezing on the coast, and she starts to look inward. She starts asking, how did we get here? How did we ruin this? And we get this incredible metaphor, translated, youth is perhaps an invisible knife. The complete nuance is this, cultural nuance. Youth is perhaps like an invisible knife that hurts others without us even realizing it. But I want to challenge this a bit. Is she just blaming youth as an excuse to not take responsibility for the breakup?
It is a fair question, definitely. But I interpret it as a profound acknowledgement of tragedy, rather than just making an excuse. This line captures the specific regret of youthful arrogance.
Okay, how so?
When we are young, we often lack the emotional vocabulary or the mature consideration required to navigate deep, complex love. We act selfishly, we speak sharply out of insecurity, and we just make these reactive decisions.
We basically stumble around in the dark. And the word knife is such an intense noun to use here. A knife doesn't just bruise you, it cuts deep, it draws blood, and it leaves a permanent scar.
Precisely. And because the knife is invisible, they couldn't see the wounds they were inflicting on each other's spirits until it was far too late. They thought they were just arguing or, defending their pride. They didn't realize they were systematically dismantling the foundation of their relationship.
Junko Yagami's sharp sensibility here perfectly captures those emotional wounds that never fade. Even 40 years later, a listener anywhere in the world hears this and instantly recognizes the invisible scars from their own youth. We've all wielded that knife.
We really have. And as they continually cut each other with that invisible knife, the structure of their love just began to collapse.
Which perfectly explains the mechanics of how the relationship officially ended. Translated, tangled together, the heart snapped. The deeper nuance is this, cultural nuance. Our feelings became so hopelessly tangled that the thread of our hearts finally snapped. Let's look at the word motsuru.
So motsuru defines a state where threads or strings become so complexly, hopelessly tangled that they simply cannot be undone. You can't just brush it out or casually untie it.
It's a complete mess.
Yeah, it represents how their love, their jealousy, their obsession, and that youthful pride we just discussed all became knotted together beyond repair.
We all know that feeling. Imagine having a delicate gold necklace or, even just your headphones in your pocket and they get so hopelessly knotted. If you lose your patience and try to just yank it apart by force, what happens?
It snaps.
Right. And the phrase heart snapped is so devastating because it's much more visceral than just saying we broke up.
Yeah.
It describes the exact violent moment. A spiritual, mental connection is entirely severed.
It reflects the most frustrating paradox of a toxic relationship. The harder you try to untie the knot of that complicated love-like motsuru, the more you try to fix it through sheer willpower, the tighter it binds you both.
Yeah.
The friction builds and builds until the immense pressure simply breaks the thread entirely. That tension becomes unbearable, and then suddenly there's just nothing holding you together anymore.
But the tragedy is that even though the thread is broken, the wound is still wide open. She is still bleeding from that invisible knife. And in her desperation, she makes a very dangerous psychological conclusion. Translated, only you are the person who can close this wound. The true emotion here is profound, cultural nuance. You are the only person in the world who can heal this wound.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, there is a brilliant, subtle, traditional technique being used in the Japanese lyricism right here. On the actual physical lyric card that fans would read, the kanji character written is otoko, which simply means man. But when she actually sings the line on the track, she pronounces it as Hito, which means person.
Oh, that is such a fantastic detail. Why the substitution? Like, what does changing man to person achieve there?
By singing person instead of just man, she elevates him from a generic biological or demographic category. She isn't crying over just any random guy she dated. She is crying over that specific person of destiny, the singular human being who holds the key to her heart.
Ah, I see. It underlines the profound desperation of her situation. We always hear the cliche that time heals all wounds or that there are plenty of fish in the sea. But in this lyric, she is declaring that time will absolutely not heal this. No other man will heal this.
Yeah, exactly.
The only person who can close or treat this deep bleeding wound is the very person who inflicted it in the first place.
It is the ultimate trap of heartbreak. You are desperate for the antidote, but you firmly believe the only person holding it is the one who poisoned you. You trap yourself in the past because you've convinced yourself that no one else's love will work as a cure.
It is a devastating place to be mentally. And when you are trapped like that, unable to move forward, the only place you can escape to is your memories of how grand it used to be. Which brings us to the final haunting image of the song, translated, like the sky embracing the sea. The full cultural weight is beautifully profound, cultural nuance. Just as the vast sky embraces the sea at the horizon, we once loved each other deeply.
It is a breathtaking pivot in the songwriting. The horizon is where the sky and the sea meet. When you look out far enough, they melt seamlessly together and you can't tell where the water ends and the atmosphere begins.
I really marvel at this imagery, because up until now, we've been grounded in this painful, cold urban reality. A careless kiss thrown on a city street, a freezing beach, invisible knives, and suddenly she pulls the camera way, way back to give us this grand, almost cosmic vision of nature.
It is the perfect symbol for a blissful time in their relationship when their minds and bodies were completely connected. They weren't two separate tangled threads anymore. They were one single entity, vast and peaceful.
It's the ultimate embrace, the sky wrapping its arms around the entire ocean. But the cruelty of the lyric is that it's only a memory. When you contrast that beautiful, expansive, warm memory with the devastatingly cold reality of her current situation, it just emphasizes how massive her loss truly is.
Yeah, absolutely.
She went from holding the entire horizon to standing freezing by herself in a twilight port town.
To synthesize all this, Tasogare no BAY City is an enduring masterpiece exactly because of how perfectly Junko Yagami balances these elements. She presents this incredibly sophisticated, cosmopolitan, upbeat musical sound, but she laces it with incredibly raw, bleeding emotion. The regret of youth, the invisible knives we carelessly wielded against those we loved, and the pursuit of a phantom love in a lonely city. These aren't just 1980s Japanese concepts.
No, they aren't. They resonate universally with the loneliness of modern city dwellers anywhere in the world. I mean, the neon lights might look different in New York or Paris or Mexico City, but the feeling of being lonely in a crowd, of missing a love that you yourself helped destroy, that never changes. It explains perfectly why a new generation found this song and refused to let it go.
It is the universal human condition, wrapped in an unforgettable, timeless melody.
It really makes you reflect on your own history. So I want to leave you, our listener, with a final thought to mull over today. When you think about your own past, how much do the specific places around you, a certain bustling city street corner you walk by on your commute, or a quiet beach in the dead of winter, silently hold the invisible scars of your own youthful mistakes?
It's something we all carry.
Thank you so much for listening. We feature various Japanese songs and provide detailed explanations on our website. Please check the link in the description to explore more. If you enjoyed this program, please subscribe to our channel and let us know your thoughts or song requests in the comments. See you next time. This was Japan Lyric Room.